And away we go. Welcome back, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. Here we are once again. Hold still, honey. Coffee Talk Live, talking about the news and events that are currently in our world today. And I've got a feisty kitten here that won't hold still. Still has no name officially, but that's okay. The rest of them are asleep, and I don't know where they are. We'll be looking into the news here very shortly as we give people an opportunity to chime in and to come in. We are live on YouTube. That is Coffee Talk on YouTube, and you can find it at Coffee Talk Live. Or you can go to Prepper University. One more look, and I'll put them down. Prepper University on YouTube and fistfulofradio.com. Fistfulofradio.com, where you can find me Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon. I think I said 5 last week. It's actually 4 o'clock, Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon. I don't know how I got that mixed up, but I did. And that's okay. As we go ahead and take a look at some of the people that have joined us here this afternoon. Well, it's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where I happen to be. Don't know what time it is where you are, but that's okay. And I do try to read as many comments as I can for those of you who are listening and not watching, so that I don't sound too terribly crazy and just talking to myself like someone's there. Helter is here. Dragon is here. Spectre is here. He says Texas is in the house. Freedom for All is here. Boogers is here. He says Hood Afternoon. John is here. He says, hi, fellow cat fans. Ali is here. And David Creason is here. It says lunchtime break. Lunchtime break. I see Bingo is here. Bingo is joining us today. Have a few topics lined up and a couple of things to catch up on from last week, things that were mentioned on Friday that I did not have a chance to get too much into, as well as a few other things that are going on. And of course, it is 9/11 right now, 9/11, 9/11, the day that they said we would never forget. Mostly been forgotten, I think, quite frankly, but that's how fickle history can be. World War I, they said that. World War II, they said that. Korea, they said that. Vietnam, they said that, and so on and so on. Anytime there's a big disaster or a big war or whatever, they say, we'll never forget. And then, as people fade away, so does the history. Most people can't even tell you the difference between World War I and World War II. All People is here, and Armored Ghost is here. He says California reparations had about 59% of voters against it, but 29% for it. The percent of it still seems astonishingly high and indicative of an absurd state. Yeah, that is kind of high. I don't think they realize where that money's going to come from. John is here. He says, I remember building 7. Yeah, no kidding. And Urban is here. Happy Monday indeed, as we start to get into some of these topics. And I'll show you this first article here. And of course, that is talking about 9/11. And there's something that caught my eye about this particular article. So I'm going to read through it a little bit, and then I'm going to jump to something else right in the middle. And I'm going to show you something to contrast and compare if it ever pops up. There we go. And this is from ABC News. And it says the U.S. marks 22 years since 9/11 with tributes and tears from Ground Zero to Alaska. Bells tolled at Ground Zero. Let's see. New York, from Ground Zero to small towns, Americans look back Monday on 9/11 with moments of silence, tearful words, and appeals to teach younger generations about the terror attacks that struck the nation exactly 22 years before. How do you know all that's going on and the commemorations haven't taken place yet? Just asking. For those of us who lost people on that day, the day is still happening. Everybody else moves on and you find a way to go forward. But that day is always happening for you, Edward Eldman said as he arrived at New York's World Trade Center to honor his slain brother-in-law, Daniel McGinley. President Joe Biden was due at a ceremony on a military base in Anchorage, Alaska. His visit en route to Washington from a trip to India and Vietnam is a reminder that the impact of 9/11 was felt in every corner of the nation, however remote. Now, let's stop right there. That's ABC News. And I'm going to open up the next one just to make a point. Just to make a point about how unimportant this actually is to the media. This is from the Associated Press. If it ever opens up. It's being a little sluggish today. Come on now. I haven't got all day. Okay, Associated Press. New York. From ground zero to small towns, America looked back Monday on 9/11 with moments of silence, tearful words, and appeals to teach younger generations about the terror attack 22 years before. For those of us who lost people on that day is still happening. Stop. Sound familiar? I opened up about 10 articles from different news sources, and it's the exact same package. It's the exact same article. You don't have anyone on your news crew that can write your own. You're all going to rehash the same one. And we're supposed to believe this means anything to you. Just making the point. That's what stood out to me. Urban says not happy Monday. Well, for some people, maybe not. John says 911 commission seemed kind of commie-like. And Armored says Associated Press of Soviet Socialists of America with a K. Yeah, no kidding. And now they give me this. Get out of here. I don't want to buy anything. But that struck me. I know they do this a lot with local news stations where talking points or a story is scripted so tightly that they all say the exact same thing the exact same way and even emote it the same way. And you've seen videos of that, I'm sure, where they have news anchors from across the country sitting at the desk reading their teleprompter, and it's the exact same thing, even from different news agencies. Same thing. That's what's happening here. Same story over and over and over again. At least they credit the writer. You know, the writer is credited. It's the same writer, obviously. But again, you're all news agencies and you can't come up with your own thing. There's no one you can't get a bot to do it. Just write something different. Rehash this a little bit. That's all you did in college was rehash somebody else's papers, somebody else's essays. And again, we're supposed to believe you actually care about any of this. And they did a fluff piece on Biden. He's supposed to be due at a ceremony at a military base in Anchorage, Alaska, blah, blah, blah. And he would be the first president to not do this in New York at ground zero. And that's significant to a lot of people. A lot of people are insulted by the fact that he didn't make it. And there's something else interesting about that as well. Urban says, according to Ilhan Omar, some people did something on that day. Yeah. My favorite is everyone was affected. Everybody knew someone that was hurt in the tragedy. I didn't. Did you? I don't think everybody knew someone that was affected in that tragedy. I've heard that several times, and I'm like, no, that doesn't seem plausible. I know a lot of people were hurt, a lot of people were killed, but that doesn't seem plausible to me. That it wasn't that many people. Now, this is the tie-in, and this one comes from Newsweek. And there you see Joe Biden commemorating 9/11 in Alaska sparks backlash. Sparks some backlash. Why is that? And there he is, looking, posing. He looks like Dwayne Johnson, except that he's not holding his cufflink. Dwayne Johnson likes to stand there holding his cufflink. President Joe Biden, reading into the article from Newsweek, is receiving criticism for commemorating the 9/11 attacks in Alaska rather than New York or any other memorial site. And how far behind the curve is he in Alaska, too? It's like, what, 4 hours behind? Biden, who traveled back from Vietnam on Monday after attending the G20 summit in New Delhi, India. They don't call it India anymore. Will deliver remarks on the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attack from the Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson Military Base in Anchorage. It will be the first time that that's what I was saying, that a sitting president will not commemorate the tragedy at one of the attack sites at New York's World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and Pennsylvania, or from the White House. Instead, First Lady Jill Biden will lay a wreath at the 9/11 memorial at the Pentagon, which was struck by American Airlines Flight 77 on Monday. Vice President Kamala Harris will be at the ceremony on the National September 11th Memorial and Museum Plaza at Ground Zero in New York. Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, will attend an event at Flight 93 National Memorial in Stonieston to commemorate those who died in a plane crash in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after passengers fought back against hijackers. Interesting. I would be interesting to see Kamala Harris's commencement, because she's even worse in front of the camera than Joe Biden. She'll completely blow it, I'm sure. What's also interesting to me is after all of the hullabaloo last week over Joe Biden testing positive for the C virus and being quarantined, and that's why Joe walked off on the Medal of Honor ceremony and said, oh, he planned for it because he's afraid of spreading anything in case he caught it from Jill. But she's commencing at the Pentagon. I thought she's supposed to be quarantined for like 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever, right? Now she's at the Pentagon hanging a wreath. Yeah. Is she really positive? How the hell am I supposed to know? I don't trust that. The other thing that I think is interesting is him in Anchorage, Alaska, because a lot of people from his administration, and I had to look for an article on this, have been getting property in Alaska. They've been moving there. They've been buying houses there. Why does everybody suddenly want to go from the current White House administration and live in Alaska? What's up with that? And I'm going to catch up a few of the comments here really quickly. Stacy is here. Thanks for joining us today, Stacy. And All People says majority of, he's talking about California again. Majority of blacks in California are not continental U.S. slavery system descendants. They're from post-slavery era migrant families. Most descendants do not support reparations. California never had slavery. Yeah, and this valid points. Again, my own wife is an actual true descendant that can trace her lineage. And a very small percentage of black people in America are true descendants from that era. And most of them could care less about any of this, quite frankly. Dragon says Biden does everything possible to distance himself from the average American. Well, he's never really been associated with the average American, has he? Ali says they put him in the most isolated state, so if he has a slip up or says something dumb, no one will hear it. Oh, it'll be recorded. And Helter says Joe Biden is on vacation again for the victims of 9/11. He's not even going to shed a tear because he doesn't care. Oh, he'll pretend, and he'll find a way to tie it into his son dying in Iraq. Watch. Which, of course, you all know never happened. Rock Valley is here. He says rules for thee, not for me. Of course. All People says a lot of the HARP technology system is located in Alaska. And John says rats always jumping a sinking ship. Delo says he made it. Yes, you did. And Armored Ghost says government interest in Alaska all of a sudden, ? The elites building their secure distance safe space. Yeah, I'm wondering about that because I've read something about that last week, that many current administration officials suddenly are buying land and property in Alaska. And I'm like, why is that? You know something that you want to share with us? Probably not. They don't share anything with us, not until it's too late. Not until it's too late to do anything about it. That's why I think it's interesting he's in Alaska, number one. What are you hanging around in Alaska for, Joe? Number two, I thought it was interesting that Jill Biden is doing anything because she tested positive and she's supposed to be staying at home and self-quarantining herself, right? So self-distancing. But now she's hanging a wreath at the Pentagon. And why is Kamala Harris's husband doing anything? Mr. I'm going to kiss my mask with my social distancing, or kiss my wife with my mask on. You remember that? We kept seeing them kissing, and they're both wearing a mask. Kind of weirdness is that? And I'm curious to see how badly Kamala Harris is going to botch up whatever she's going to talk about, because she's terrible on camera. She does about as badly as Joe, but in a different way. So I'm like, yeah, let's hear you blow that. Let's hear you blow that. Urban says Alaska and Maui. Yeah. It'll be a lot harder for Alaska to burn down, though. Rock Valley says Alaska next to burn down, question mark. And Rodney says a lot of the elites have built their bolt holes here in New Zealand, mostly in an area called Central Otago. Is it very mountainous region? Is it a very mountainous region, Rodney? Oracle says Alaska close to Russia and China. Russians taking back Alaska. I don't know about that, but the warden says, I think Biden is looking for a cave to start his new life as a crazy ass hermit. Well, it would be a very elaborate, very well stocked, and very secure cave if that's the case. Because remember, these people, they can afford the massive, elaborate underground bunkers. And if you can find a mountain that is a solid rock and tunnel under it, fantastic. That's perfect. And that's why I was wondering if it's a very mountainous region where they were doing that in New Zealand. And since it came up about Maui, got a thing about Maui here. Armand says Kamala might be the push we need to accelerate institutional collapse. And Rodney says very mountainous with a convenient international airport tucked away in Queenstown. Interesting. Very interesting, of course. So back to Maui real quick here, since it came up. And this is actually an article from, who wrote this article? Where does this come from? If I can get this ad out of the way and actually see it. Architectural Digest. That's where this is, because you're not going to see much on this story. Oprah Winfrey buys 870 acres in Maui for $6.6 million. That's cheap. That's cheap. She's getting a bargain. The media magnate bought 4 large parcels of Hawaiian land in the last few months. And there she is. And that's still flattering, because in real life, she looks much worse. I know I'm awful. But here we are. After over 15 years of living in Maui part-time, Oprah Winfrey spent the last few months majorly expanding her property holdings in the Aloha State, according to a report from local news outlet KITV4. The media mogul spent about $6.6 million on 4 parcels of agricultural land totaling 870 acres in Kula, Maui, per Maui Now. 2 of those parcels was sold by Opaluka Ranch last month, one 570-acre plot for $3.89 million, and another 330 acres for $2.4 million near the end of last year. Winfrey acquired an additional 2 10-acre swath of land, each for $100,000. The talk show Trailblazer already owned over 100 acres of Maui land, according to the report, meaning Winfrey now owns roughly 1,000 acres on the island. The acquisition was met with mixed reactions from local residents, some of whom worried that the purchase would contribute to the displacement of native Hawaiians. There aren't that many native Hawaiians left, not true ones. Others, such as Maui Councilmember Yuki Leaky Sugimura, praised Winfrey for hiring local residents and keeping the majority of her land undeveloped. That is, agricultural land is treated here as you can imagine, treasured here as you can imagine. I keep flubbing that. She told KITV4 before urging the billionaire to use her resources to address wildlife concerns in the area, such as the overpopulation of axis deer and hogs. We're struggling. We're putting tax dollars together to try to do fencing and culling. We want to protect our food for food security as well as protect the watershed. Those are big issues, and she's stepping right into them. Sugimura continued, I wish we had more people like her to consider when they purchase lands how we've just been inundated with a whole lot of development and tourism, Hawaii Senator Lynn DeCoite said in the report. So there's your kiss asses sucking up to Oprah for buying the land. I wonder how much they got. She now owns over 1,000 acres of Maui property, damn near 900 acres of it purchased just in the last couple of months. Coincidence? I don't know. What do you think? Catch up a couple of these comments here. Eric Hill says Prince Harry's wrapping up his bunker in New Zealand. I bet. Urban says Hawaii governor suggested the government buy up land to protect it from predatory developers. Yeah, they're as predatory as any of the developers are anytime the government acquires land. Fluke Man says 870 acres. Think that's about the same size as Central Park. Monkey says, hey, yo, we'll be listening in soon. Just had to go to the doctor's for earwax cleaning. Thanks for telling us that. Just messing with you, Monkey. Glad you could join us. Dragon says, what a coincidence. Now they're building their smart city after historical sites were burned down in Maui. Urban says, I think he was referring to Lahaina specifically. The idea is to make it a preserve, so no new developers. But what about the native generational owners? Some don't even have a legal house deed. Yeah. And Cruising says excess deer and hogs, those are food. Yeah, you know that they do that. Well, let's overdevelop everything and then squeeze animals into a smaller and smaller area and then say, oh, well, they don't have enough to eat, so it's humane for us to kill them, like they do with deer in the United States, although they've survived for millions of years through starving periods and still managed to go on. It's just an excuse to sell hunting licenses. Helter says, methinks she's building an Epstein resort. Oh, no. And Doc says, hey, just tuning in. Sorry, I'm late. No problem. Glad you could join us. Urban says, where are the indigenous activists in Washington screaming from the rooftops about the displacement of native populations in Maui? Well, they're more isolated, so you don't have to hear them. You don't have to hear the people in Maui calling out or the people in Hawaii calling out because, one, there aren't that many true indigenous Hawaiians left, and two, because they're on an island, just like in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico gets hammered by the government and their policies and agencies all the time. You don't hear from Puerto Rico because they're isolated. They're on an island. If they were connected to the mainland, they'd have more of a voice, unfortunately. Also, the taxes are different for them. But that's how it is. And you can look this up, that the government got away with running birth control experiments on the people in Puerto Rico without their knowledge or consent in the 60s. That's where your modern birth control pills come from, is from the experiments that were done on those people without their knowledge or consent. I'll say it again. JD is here, and he says, YouTube is deleting my comments about the top. Yeah, I bet they are. I see you put a question mark up there, too. You're not going to be able to put much up about that. And if you recall, and I had done a whole video on it some time ago, when the Notre Dame fire happened, they deleted over 400,000 videos on the subject and then had to apologize for it because they said their bot thought it was 9/11 videos and automatically took them down, deleted them, or blocked them, or sanctioned them, or gave people a strike for them. And this after they claimed that they don't do that. They had to admit that they did because of what happened with the Notre Dame fire. And they still do that. So, yeah, you're going to have issues. Keisha's here. Thanks for joining us, Keisha. Spectre says, I'd be chatting, but I'm staining my window shutters. That's fine. JD says, happy airplanes going to building stay. Yeah. Oh, man. Urban says, I have the solution. They should all keep voting Democrat. Maybe next time they'll get it right. Yeah, you could. That's, again, Einstein's definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Urban said, oh, I just read that. It didn't cascade the comment. Doc says they pulled a Sun Tzu in Maui. And Cruising says, trying to explain to my brother how violent France has gotten now that you mentioned the church fire. France is terrifying now. France is like back during, I closed the wrong thing. France is like back during the French Revolution now, except that they're not rolling heads yet. They probably need to line up all of the politicians and all the people from the media and all of these celebrities who sold out for profit, and get the guillotine going again to wake the world up, because that's the only way you're going to get a solution, unfortunately. And I'm not calling for violence. I'm not telling France to have a revolution, even though they're kind of already in the midst of one, because it's nonstop riots there. It's been like that for 4 or 5 years. It's crazy. And John says, Simon says, you better pay your taxes, plebes. Yeah, I know. Well, you don't have much of a chance. Otherwise, you have to pay them. You don't have any choice in the matter. You have no choice. They just take it from you automatically. And if you make a mistake, they penalize you. If they make a mistake, it's tough. Oh, well, sorry, our bad. And maybe we'll correct it and maybe we won't. Now, this came up Friday, and I wanted to run it over again. And Urban said, sorry, doing a documents editing course in the other browser. Can't let the spelling mistake go. No problem. Not worried about it. This article comes from Fox News, but as demonstrated at the very beginning of this, you'll see the same crap over and over again in every article you look at pretty much. Gun safe company hit with backlash for providing FBI with code to customers safe. And we talked about this a little bit on Friday. And, I was a little bit of a misunderstanding there, because I said, what the hell's the big deal? But I'm talking about from the FBI's perspective. And I think I explained that at the time, because for the law enforcement end of it, they don't need a combination to get into a safe. A wall safe, a floor safe, any of those standard model safes that you buy, unless you buy like an actual bank safe or any gun safe, they have a device that will split it right open. I've seen this thing. I should have looked for a video for it so I could show you. It looks like the jaws of life, and it has this lip, and they shimmy it in there. It vibrates and shimmies in there, and then just opens up, and it just pops the door open. It's ridiculous. So they don't need this information, and that's why I was saying, what the hell is the big deal? Why is the FBI even asking for this? It was what I meant. Not that it's not a big deal that the company gave it away. And yeah, Doc says, oh yes, Liberty safes. And John says, common sense gun laws. Yeah, indeed. That's why. But we'll take a look at the article here really quick. Popular gun safe company Liberty Safe is facing intense backlash after providing the FBI with the password to a customer's safe at the law enforcement agency's request, and conservative influencers are now calling for boycotting the brand. Outrage against the Utah-based safe manufacturer began Monday after conservative commentators Keith and Kevin Hodge, known as the Hodge twins, yeah, I know who they are, posted the revelation on the X social media platform, formerly known as Twitter. Last week, a friend of ours was raided by the feds over J6 or January 6th. Is that, what do you mean J6? Over J6. Oh, I see. The January 6th event is what they're referring to. I got a little confused there. His name is Nathan Hughes, and he's from Fayetteville, Arkansas. The Post reads, which notes in the report the feds called the manufacturer of his Liberty gun safe and got the passcode to get into it too, all for protesting at the Capitol over 2.5 years ago. Nathan Hughes himself confirmed the story the next day, saying in a video posted on X that Liberty Safe gave the FBI a master code to get into my gun safe. He added, pretty crazy, didn't know safe companies would do that. So I feel like a lot of our gun safes are not actually safe. Why do they have a universal code for it anyways? That's my question. Liberty Safe admitted in a statement Tuesday that it gave the FBI the access code to the safe of an individual for whom the FBI had a warrant to search the property after receiving the agency's request on August 30th. And again, they wanted that. If they have a master code, and I'm assuming just like a master key, it'll open most safes, that's the real reason they wanted it, because the FBI can get into any safe anyways. Quote, Liberty Safe is devoted to protecting the personal property and Second Amendment rights of our customers and has repeatedly denied requests for access codes without a warrant in the past. The statement reads, "We do not give out combinations without proper legal documentation being provided by authorities." Yeah, but now look what you've done. The statement did not appease Liberty's critics, who immediately began calling for boycotting the company in the same fashion as Bud Light, which has suffered substantial losses in sales after the Anheuser-Busch InBev brand partnered with transmogrified influencer Dylan Mulvaney, the fraud who does not think he's a woman at all, earlier this week in a marketing effort that caused many beer drinkers to shun it. And here's another quote. "Absent a court order, you weren't required to give them anything," Sean Davis, co-founder of the Federalist, replied in response to Liberty's initial statement. "You voluntarily gave out a combination over a warrant per your own release that didn't apply to you or your property. Maybe start making your stuff. Maybe start marketing your stuff as Bud Light storage." Huh. Now let me catch up a couple of these comments here really quick. And Urban says anything that makes it even a few seconds harder for them to get into a private space is worth it. I understand. And Dragon says the real issue here is once the safe is purchased, Liberty Safe no longer owns the safe. Therefore, why would they even have codes to get into it? That's a concern. I guess the concept is that if you ever locked yourself out of the safe, they could provide the code to a certified locksmith who could then open it and reset it for you. You know what I mean? I think that's the idea, kind of like when they have master keys for an apartment building. Why does the janitor need to have a key that opens up 56 apartments instead of 56 keys on a ring? Kind of a deal. John says, never forget Waco holiday, dear leader. Yeah. And Cruising says, keep your guns in the floorboards and keep a decoy safe full of concrete. Watch the ATF throw their backs out moving it. And JD says, see if the federal government can open the safe door without breaking it. They can confiscate it and resell it. That's true. And Keisha said, would the best way to keep your safe is to be quiet about it and lay low? I guess. I mean, nobody needs to know you have a safe. Helter says Liberty Safe is supposed to be a Pro 2A company, yet they've turned over access to their customers' property to the tyrannical government. And Doc says the reason why Liberty Safe has a master code is because people are dumb and forget their codes. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. However, that doesn't mean that they should give a code out to someone that they shouldn't. Correct. And PV says better late than never. Well, thanks for joining us, PV. And Doc says have it. Someone that shouldn't have it, he was elaborating further. But yeah, that's basically my point. Like I said, the FBI didn't need that. They did not need a master code. They used a warrant as an excuse to get the master code, and now they can get into other safes. And that's why Apple refused to give them an access code to get into an iPhone. They had to spend weeks cracking it themselves. But that's essentially the problem. And like I said, they do have a device that will open a safe. They do have a device that will do it. So they don't need it. They just wanted that. They wanted to have it. And it's ridiculous. And it's unfortunate. And it makes people feel betrayed. And it's an American company. It's an American company. And that's unfortunate too, because now, because of this backlash, they're probably going to be boycotted. People are probably going to stop buying from Liberty, and we're going to see another American company die. Although they kind of shot themselves here. Doc says the best safe to have is analog, not digital. And Eric Peter is here. He says, as much as I have come to despise Apple, I do have to give them credit for that. Yeah. Apple, I don't care for Apple either, but they did tell the FBI to take a flying jump. Like, unless you're going to produce a court order and make us, we're not telling you anything. and they didn't. Cruising says next week on Prepper University DIY how to build your own biometric gun safe from an old iPhone and scrap steel. Yeah, okay. And John says a lot of Mua heroes walking upstairs. We are helping, they say. As we move on here, this article I found interesting for a specific reason as we get into it. Something from California. And no, it's not homeless people. And no, it's not migrant problems. It's a different problem. And this article comes from ABC News. And I'll tell you why this interests me after I read through it. Again, ABC News, it says California school district to pay $2.25 million to settle suit involving teacher who had student's baby. Redlands, California, Southern California School District will pay $2.25 million to settle the latest lawsuit because there's a bunch of them involving a teacher who became pregnant by one of at least two students she was accused of sexually abusing. The settlement brings to $8.25 million, the amount paid by Redlands Unified School District to Laura Whitehurst's victims since her 2013 arrest, the Southern California News Group reported Sunday. In August 2016, the district agreed to pay $6 million to a former student who impregnated Whitehurst while she was his teacher. The latest lawsuit was filed in 2021 by another former student who alleged he was preyed upon and sexually abused at Redlands High School by Whitehurst in 2007 and 2008 when he was 14. According to the plaintiff's attorney, Morgan Stewart, Whitehurst admitted to police in 2013 she had sex with the youth 10 to 15 times in her classroom and in her apartment, a police report said. Redlands Unified spokesperson Christine Stevens said Friday that the district was aware of the recent settlement but could not comment due to confidentiality agreements. Yeah, because it's a settlement, which means now the book is closed and you can't talk about it. Also, I want to point out here that one student was 14 here when he was 14 years old, but in California, that's age of consent. Remember, that's the age of consent in California. However, it's a violation of the integrity of her position. Someone in her position shouldn't be doing that. If she was out in the street, she could get away with it because of the age of consent laws. But because he was a student, that makes it different. Now, why this stands out for me is because of some of the backlash I've gotten in a few of the videos I've done talking about daycare and talking about public schools and things like that, and some points that I've made about how it's a very female-dominated profession. Education, social work, pediatricians. We're getting there with probation officers now. Many female probation officers, court clerks, very heavily female-dominated professions. And I've had the argument made to me many times that, well, you can't have men doing those jobs because they're going to molest people. Yet, there are so many stories of women doing this. Because guess what? Women are people too, and women are evil too, and women also do things like this. Not just men, all right? Men are not the only ones who prey on young people. Surprise. Female teachers and social workers and probation officers and others do it too, because I've seen it and I've heard it. And there's a lot of articles on the subject. All you have to do is look them up. If I can catch let me see. A few more comments here. Derp says women having sex with students would be a man doing it in jail and probably would die there. Yeah, no kidding. Because it's viewed very differently. If this was a guy, he would have gotten a very lengthy prison sentence. She did not. Let me catch up a little bit more of the article. Let me see if it even tells you. In the other lawsuit, the boy who fathered Whitehurst's child alleged that Redlands Unified officials knew of his relationship with the teacher and failed to warn his family. Whitehurst gave birth in 2014 after having sex with the boy for a year, starting when he was 16. Whitehurst, who taught English and was a soccer coach, pleaded guilty to unlawful sex with 3 former students. See, not minors. 3 former students because, again, age of consent laws are different in California. She served how long? 6 months in jail and had to register it as an offender. 6 whole months. If I did that, I'd have gotten 6 years at least. Let me catch up a couple more comments. Cruising says, surprised you don't get hung out just acknowledging the existence of female predators. Yeah, well, I've gotten into a lot of trouble talking about things that are completely true on Coffee Talk, as you well know. Again, my entire video on Munchausen's by proxy was removed twice because of so-called misinformation. And obviously it is not. All I did was read what the medical definition of it is when I did that video. Doc says, sounds like a teacher needs to spend a long time in prison. If the roles were reversed and it was a male teacher, he'd be hammered into the ground because of the stereotype. Keisha says, I knew a woman probation officer and you could just tell she wasn't happy. None of them are. None of them are. I haven't seen a social worker yet that liked her job. Not one. Whether she worked for the court, whether she worked for child services, whatever she did, she couldn't stand it. Eric Hill says it's more of a psychological message. Nothing is safe, especially for your metal protectors. Metal protectors. Urban says unless the male teacher was wearing a dress and Z-cup prosthetic. Oh God, yeah. And Helter says this goes to show you the legal system is very lenient towards female defendants. It can be. And Eric Hill says also the message is Liberty Company had probably a huge list of their customers that's even more critical. Yeah. So they know who owns the safe. And if there's a safe, there's probably a firearm, right? Cruising says, wonder if the woman gets to sue the kid after he's 18 for child support. It's California after all. I know, indeed. But that's why that struck me as interesting. First of all, that she basically got a slap on the wrist, that the state had to pay it. The state paid out so far $8.25 million because of this, because of things tied to this lawsuit. That is taxpayer money going to these families. She's not hurt. The school's not hurting. It's taxpayer money. Age of consent means that she can't be really convicted as a predator, just that she violated essentially the oath of office. That's why it says accused of, basically fornicating with 3 former students, for lack of a better description. That's what she's charged with. And of course, the contrast that if it was a male, they would have crucified that guy. And then one more here from Doc. It says, in divorce court, the legal system is very lenient against female defendants. That's true, too. And I've been through that twice. And that I was warned by the attorney. The court will tell you, the court conciliator, who, by the way, is also always female, sits there and says, oh, no, it's, or case managers, too, females, all of them, that it's 50-50. It's 50-50. And the attorney is like, yeah, bullshit. It's 85% or better. Is going to lean towards the female. She had better be tied up in some vicious crime that you can prove, or the judge isn't even going to listen to you. The judge is going to take the case manager's recommendation and just run with it. He won't even listen to you in court. That was my warning, and it was very true. Very true. Fluke Man says, what punishment do you think a transmogrified would get for having a relationship with a female student in California? Jeez, I don't know. I don't know. I bet you they'd be real lenient. Then he would claim to have a mental illness. Rodney says it may be worth uploading your videos to other platforms in addition to YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. YouTube cannot delete videos from there. No, and I have mirrored on Rumble a lot of stuff. Nobody ever sees it. Nobody watches on Rumble. And don't think Rumble won't also censor you. They're not as tight as YouTube, but they'll do it too. And then let me see, Derp here says most females in the workplace don't like it. It goes against their way. They are designed and it is unnatural. They literally have to compete with males in the workplace, which is also unnatural. And sometimes they think they have to compete and they don't, and they do anyways and mix things up even worse. And Derp says, traditions for a reason. The happiest demographic in North America are the Hutteries and Amish because of the traditional roles. And Derp says, probably Mennonites too. And Stacy says, what do you think about the Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher news on supporting a rapist and other news coming out about them themselves? I haven't heard too much about that, actually. I don't know if I've seen that. Now, this one is also very important. This, I think, is vitally important. Shozan says, who got censored on Rumble? I don't know anyone personally, but I do know that they will censor you because I have seen complaints about it. But yeah, they're no better ultimately. All People says, ever wonder if some of the predator teachers are government agents assigned to normalize those crimes? Mary Jo Litorno was a senator's kid, and her brothers are in military intelligence. And Rodney says, damn, I cannot find your channel on Rumble. Maybe Shadow Band doesn't have the same name. It's Coffee Talk. What the hell is it? Not Coffee Talk Live. It's Coffee Talk Chat. I'm trying to remember because I haven't opened it up in a while. Let me see if I even still put it up there. I don't see it. I'll have to look for it because I haven't loaded anything onto it for a while. It's like Coffee Talk Chat or Coffee Talk Live or something like that. And JD says even Odyssey has been banning NatSoc streams unless you own the server streaming the video. There's no guarantee your content won't be censored. Unfortunately, that is true. Now, next article here, and I'll look that up. I'll see if I can remember what the hell the name of it is. Coffee Talk something. I think it's Coffee Talk Chat or Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2. I think I might have done that. This is from the New York Post. Several employees injured after explosion rips through Illinois ADM plant. Now, this is an important story, and I'll tell you why here in a minute after I scroll through it. If it'll work, because it's locking up on me. Okay, that's not good. Am I still there? It's acting wonky. Here we go. Multiple people were injured Sunday when an explosion rocked a food processing plant in Illinois. The eruption occurred around 7:15 p.m. inside ADM's complex in Decatur, a city of roughly 70,000. The company said in a statement, the blast caused significant damage throughout the complex. East plant images show, and there it is, blown away in the side of the building. Heavy smoke was seen billowing from the grounds as city fire officials battled the subsequent fire. Several employees were rushed to a local hospital for treatment, the company said. The exact number of the injured and their conditions were not immediately known, and there's the explosion in the distance, and you can see bits and pieces fly in there. The explosion was enough to shake nearby homes. The plant was evacuated, but the Decatur Fire Department said no private homes needed to be cleared. Multiple agencies are monitoring the situation and expect to release new information as the investigation continues. My team and I are in touch with local officials as we closely monitor the situation at ADM this evening. Rep. Nikki Budinsky said on X, formerly known as Twitter. I think it's funny how they keep saying formerly known as Twitter. The blaze is the third fire at ADM this year and comes less than 12 weeks after firefighters extinguished a very labor-intensive inferno at the same plant. Now, why is this important? A couple more comments here. Doc says, how many food plants does that make now? That's why it's important, Doc. That's my point. And third big fire for them this year already. And we keep having food processing plants all across the country either get shut down, because remember, that's why there was a formula shortage. When they shut down the formula plants, the FDA did it because it was a rumor that somebody was positive for the C virus. Recall that? And then because there was a rumor, oh no, they were shut down because of a recall, but they quickly corrected it. And then the FDA would not come to the plant to do the inspection for them to reopen because they claimed there was a rumor that someone had the C virus and they wanted to quarantine it, and it kept the plant closed for a couple of months. And then there was formula shortages across the United States as a result of that. PV says those ads and autoplay videos sure do slow things down on a web page. Yeah, they do. They make it a nightmare. I even just the article holding still enough for me to read it properly is a pain in the butt. And Doc says as the investigation continues, meaning you won't hear about it again. Yeah, that's about it. That's about what it boils down to. Is will you hear about it again? Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, it's Coffee Talk 2, the number 2. I'm sorry. Getting back to that. I wanted to double check because I forgot what I put there. Coffee Talk 2 on Rumble. And like I said, I haven't put anything there in a while, but I was mirroring videos from this channel there. But yeah, there's no audience. There's nothing. You put a video up and a month later, there's like 9 views on it. It's kind of a waste of time. Plus, again, they can still censor you, so you got to watch out. Urban says they should just do like Trudeau and ban important goods like WD-40 and many fertilizers. The destruction of private businesses continues according to plan in Canuck Circus Land. Yeah. It really is self-destructive. Canada is not holding up very well, unfortunately. They're destroying it. They're destroying it, and I feel bad for the people up there. And again, their attempts to fight back, the trucking protest looked like it was going somewhere, and then they finally got hammered. The Trudeau hit them right in the wallet, and they gave up, and they haven't recovered. And again, holding out for the protests that are coming to Canada on the 20th, the organized protests about their children and about the indoctrination that's going on in the public school system and other things. I wish them the best. I wish them the best. And, all we can do is offer their prayers for the time being. It'd be nice to see it expand elsewhere. If it looks like it's doing something, other communities and other countries will try it until it's crushed. Keep in mind, we haven't seen anything successful come out of protesting since Martin Luther King. It's been a long time. Everything eventually gets shut down. Flukeman says YouTube and the mother site Google has grown too strong to have any real competitors. Yeah, and they have had a couple that have come up over the last few years, in the last 5 years or so. There were I think maybe 3 that were getting close. And Google buys them out. They buy them out, and then they just shut them off. They buy out their which should be illegal. That's really the Walmart methodology, though, but they wouldn't buy the other companies out. They open up near you and just run you out of business and then abandon the store. That's what they do. All People says Justin Trudeau is determined to destroy Canada. Urban says, don't feel bad for me. Unlike most born and raised Canadians, I have a second citizenship. Unlike them, I have somewhere to run when the time comes. Well, that's good. That's good. Now, one more here. And I'll catch up a few more of the comments, and then we'll get into that. Here's Eric Peterson again. He said, or Eric Peter. I don't know why I say Peterson. I live in Los Angeles, and about a month ago, I was wearing a shirt with an American flag on my sleeve, and 2 teenagers came up to me and said, "Look at Trump supporter. It's really sad out there." Look, a Trump supporter. Oh, yeah. What are you, a dinosaur? They take your picture. They pose with you. Take a couple of selfies. Were you drooling? That's incredible. People are stupid. You know that. Most people are not that smart. I say it all the time. It's just unfortunate that because you watch society crumbling around you and you say to yourself, yeah, you kind of asked for it. You kind of deserve it. The problem is, though, that they'll take the rest of us with them. It's like when a ship sinks and it sucks things that are too close down under the tide. It's incredible. We talked about this a little bit recently, because a lot of San Francisco real estate's been getting purchased by billionaires, but they're buying a lot more than that. This comes from the Independent. Billionaires spent 800 million snapping up California farms. Their mystery plan for a utopian city is drawing suspicion, you think? And there you go. This is the landscape they're looking for. See all the windmills up there, which are not very efficient, by the way. They cost a fortune to build, too. A chance for a new community, good paying local jobs, solar farms, and open space. Lies, lies, and more lies. Yeah, a chance, but will it happen? That's what California Forever promises on its lushly illustrated new website, launched last week in order to bring transparency to its previously veiled plans for the southern corner of Solano County, California, where its property arm, Flannery Associates, has spent the last 6 years buying up 140 farms and around 55,000 acres of agricultural land at a cost of $800 million, to the consternation of many living locally. Lying between what's going to happen to that farmland? Are we not going to grow on it anymore? Lying between San Francisco and Sacramento, that makes sense, because remember, again, billionaires have already been buying up a lot of land in San Francisco that they're looking to develop into something like this. And I made references to RoboCop and New Detroit. And stretching from Fairfield to Rio Vista, the land had historically been used for grazing livestock and growing staple crops like wheat and barley, and was typically handed down within families from one generation to the next. Yeah, but you will own nothing and be happy. But California Forever plans to change all that after revealing its vision for the construction of a utopian city deep in the countryside, composed of incredible homes and walkable neighborhoods. There we are. That will provide families with an ideal community in which to live and work, that will be both environmentally sound and well connected to the state's existing urban centers. Some believe the proposition is too good to be true. However, the project has been met with a certain amount of suspicion. The established order in sleepy Solano County began to be disrupted in 2017 when a group of mystery investors began making offers to local ranchers disinclined to take no for an answer, and reportedly making repeated approaches if they were rebuffed. It was like a hostile takeover, one farmer told the newspaper, preferring to speak anonymously. It was Shakespearean, a Game of Thrones kind of thing. The land was acquired gradually, piece by piece, with a survey circulated recently among local residents inquiring how they might feel about a new city with tens of thousands of new homes, a large solar energy farm, orchids with over a million new trees, and over 10,000 acres of new parks and open space being built nearby. Some were unnerved about the company's apparent reluctance to identify its investors or state of intentions, with Solano County's Administrator Bill Emlin telling the Chronicle, "We approached them a while back and said, we've noticed you've been making a lot of large acquisitions and we'd like to set up a meeting to talk about zoning." Oh, he's looking for tax money. "And general plan and what your intentions are." They said they were investors in family farms and their intention was to continue with grazing and farming, and that was their plan. Apparently that was a lie, because that's not what they're going to do. PV says, would anyone want to actually live in California? Once upon a time, but not anymore, because it's been ruined. All the cities have been destroyed, and this looks more and more like by design, since these multi-billionaires have been coming together and buying up huge swaths of land, both in San Francisco and in nearby farming communities, with these intentions of doing something like the line in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, long-term plans. Dragon says these blue sky utopian city projects don't benefit the common folk. Personally, I currently don't think it'll ever happen or end up getting mired in some controversy that'll kill it. Well, they'll build it and then it'll self-destruct. Urban says the word utopia is an ancient Greek word that literally means no place. And Doc says, I stick with my life in the woods. They can keep their utopia. Exactly. But it is very suspicious, and they did strong-arm people, and they did lie about why they were buying this property. We're going to keep it grazing land. We're going to keep farming barley on it. Yeah, bull. You lied. Silicon Valley elite unmasked as interest in the project swelled, understandably, given the scale of the investment involved. The New York Times published an article on 25th of August in which it unmasked the players as Silicon Valley elite, amounting to a who's who of the tech industry, just like the property we talked about a couple of weeks ago that's been purchased in huge chunks in San Francisco. Its participants turned out to include venture capitalists Michael Moritz, Mark Anderson, LinkedIn's co-founder Reid Hoffman, Stripe co-founder Patrick and John Coulson, and Emerson Collective's founder Lorene Powell Jobs, with the project being steered by Sheck CEO Jan Shermek, just 36, formerly a Goldman Sachs trader and political consultant. Same group of people that was buying the property in San Francisco in the other article. I hope it blows up in their face. The idea is they say they're going to have people from all walks of life in the same community and all different like economic backgrounds, and that's not going to level off. They're going to eat each other alive in those communities after a time. All People says they are likely Chinese-funded investors and trader politicians secretly support. And DIY says most people are forced to sell their homes in order to pay for end-of-life care. Yeah, and it's a shame to see generational farms legacies. I hate when a person's legacy is sold out or killed, but that's what it's coming to. Let them spend billions, let them ruin it. The type of people that they've got down there that are used to the squalor and destruction in California will only run these properties down. Seen it way too many times. This is why housing projects always fail in the United States. It's why they always fail, because you can take people out of an element that they're accustomed to and put them in a new element, and they'll just drag all of that baggage with them and destroy the place they've been moved to. So yeah, pay for it and lose it. Fluke Man says Christopher Reeve, Superman, Lex Luthor tried to destroy California. Doesn't seem such a bad idea. That's right. He arranged for a nuclear missile to be accidentally fired into the San Andreas fault line in that film. Sarcasm, of course, wouldn't want YouTube to get the wrong idea. No kidding. Urban says in the 15-minute city, the first minute will be spent full of Brazilification of said layers. Yeah, they'll turn it into the Hunger Games. But anyway, that's what we got for you today. I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon. Again, this is Coffee Talk Live. I am Coffee Talk on YouTube, at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, and mirroring also on Prepper University on YouTube. And you can find me Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time on fistfulofradio.com, which is a podcasting service out of Atlanta. Please do check it out if you get the chance. And so I will go ahead and wrap things up for you today. And we will do this again tomorrow, barring any complications. I'm supposed to go to the endodontist tomorrow because of, again, let's just keep dragging it out and keep spending a fortune on the damn tooth. Getting tired of it. But yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow. Thanks for everybody for joining us. Hope you got something